Right, good morning. I can see most of you have joined, so we'll start. Right now, I heard that your exam got rescheduled and it is on 12th of December. So the office will send you information related to that. So please keep an eye on the information. In the meantime, we are going to have another class next week. That is to finalize our sessions and also to see what kind of issues that you have throughout the session, to have a kind of a discussion. So next week there will be a session for you, right? And I have uploaded the service quality tute to your portal. I'm sure you have received it. Can someone confirm whether it is there in your portal?
Yes, it's there.
It's there, right? Fine. Yeah. So I think
the customer segmentation one is still not there. The customer. Yeah, that one is still not there. I think the second chapter in the syllabus, that one is still not there. Sir.
Okay, let me check. Let me check with them. But okay, I'll check on that. But if it didn't get uploaded by about Tuesday, you give me a call or send me a text, right? I'll check on that.
Okay, sir.
Right. Okay. So today, before we start the session, let's look at two questions. Actually, this is from the past papers. I would like you to answer this, because then I can see whether you are going towards the right direction. Actually, these are first one is a 5-mark question, second one is a 10-mark question. So before we start the session, I would like you to answer these two questions, and then I would like to look at each one's answer so that I can give you a clear feedback as to what is expected from the exam. Because last time also there were some students who have come to the classes, but when they are approaching the exam, they have not written the proper answer. Remember, you are doing the postgraduate diploma. Therefore, you have been assessed as a postgraduate student, not as a diploma student. So therefore, you have to write a proper answer when it comes to the questions. Remember the model I told you. You need to have kind of a explanation about the theory and also the practical application of same. The practical application can come from an international example or a local example well known, or a personal example which you will bring in without mentioning the names, that's fine, but which you will bring in, but which should be the realistic one. You can't bring in artificial examples as personal examples and try to get rid of the matter. But you need to bring in some of your practical examples. If you bring in, that's also fine. So there has to be two parts. One is the theoretical part. You have to show that if someone tells you gap model, you have to go by the gap model. You can't be going on your own gap model. It has to be the gap model that we have taught you, right? So that you have to apply, and then you need to see how you will put practical side. So all the questions, most of the time, if you really look at the past papers which is uploaded by now, it is designed in that way. It is not designed for a parrot to pass the exam. It has been designed in such a way where you talk about the theory and the application of it practically, so that you can go tomorrow and use this learning, right? So I have put two questions. So I will give you about 10 minutes, right? Now 10 minutes and 8:50 now. So 9 o'clock, I will listen to each one's answer, and after that, we will go to the customer CRM models and CRM implementation, and we are going to finish it today, right? Right. So I'll give you 10 minutes now. Please jot down at least the points and just have a chat with me so that I can correct you, right? Fine. So that's why I have taken another day also, because I want to ensure that all of you pass. Otherwise, last time also, I thought they are good, but then eventually some of them fail, right? So can you please look at your notes and then take 10 minutes and answer these questions? I don't want you to write paragraph. Just put points and then explain it to me. Okay, shall we start now? Are you all okay for that? Because otherwise you won't get the feedback. Chaturanga, you're there? Chaturanga?
Yes, I am there. So these questions pertaining to which topic, sir?
This you can see, right? First one is an overall question, and second one is to the service quality. Hello, Chaturanga, are you clear?
Okay, sir. Okay.
Chaminda?
Okay. Yes, yes, sir. Yes.
Right. Okay. Okay. So Chaminda, you are clear? Dilshani, are you okay?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Right. Okay. Good. So we will start now. So I'll give you 10 minutes. 9 o'clock. I'm going to listen to all of you. Right? Okay. I'm going to be on the class. So if you have any questions, you can ask while you're writing the answer. How are you guys? Do you need another 5 minutes? So you're on the exercise. Have you any problems? Now it's 9. Disha, do you need some more time or you are done?
I'm almost done with the first questions.
All right. Chaturanga?
So first question, I think I have done something, but second question, I have to go through and see something.
Right. Okay. Chaminda?
I'm doing my first question, sir.
All right. Okay. Ranga, how about you? Rangana? Rangana? Yeah.
I'm attending to the second one, right?
Okay. So most of you are attending to the second one. So I'll give you about another 5 minutes so that you can finish the second also. Giving hope you are also on track.
Yes, I'm on the second one.
Okay. Okay. Fine. Now it's 9:05, so we'll start the discussion. Who wants to go first? Who wants to go first? So in that case, we have to go by the voting system. According to the alphabet, I have to go. Right. According to the alphabet, there are two C's, Chaminda and Chaturanga. When you look at the surname, L-O-S. L comes before S.
So actually, the second.
Yes. Yes, Chaturanga. Yes, Chaturanga, go ahead.
Hello.
Yes, Chaturanga, go ahead.
Okay.
Your mic is getting off.
So can you hear me? I'm having
but your mic is getting.
Can you hear me, sir? Hello.
Now, yeah, we can hear, but it's sort of suddenly
can you
getting
hear me, sir?
muted.
Hello.
Yes, yes. Hello.
No, I think there's a.
Yeah,
Hello,
can you hear
hear?
Chaturanga, but you are going off. Okay, Chaturanga, let him sort out the matter. Chaminda, are you done? Chaminda? Yeah. Can we
Yes,
listen
sir.
to you, Chaminda?
Still I'm doing. No, still I'm doing.
Still you are doing?
Sir, can you hear me now, sir? I'm
Yes,
Chaturanga.
I
Hello.
can hear you.
There was a network, I think, some disturbance in my network, so I couldn't. So I would like to attempt to the first question, and second question I couldn't do much, sir. So I would like to.
Right. Okay. Then because for the interest of the time, let's try to go ahead. So if you can tell me about the first question.
So the first question is the link. Discuss the link amount, satisfaction, loyalty, and CRM. So first thing, sir, I would like to discuss under this question is the definition of satisfaction. That is the customer's expectation and perceived performance of the product. So I will give a brief introduction about this expectation part. And second part is the loyalty, and I would like to discuss a few things about the customer loyalty ladder, and I will mention that there is an interlink between satisfaction and loyalty. That means the satisfaction leads to loyalty, satisfaction leads to repeat purchases, and repeat purchase there will be a moment of truth where we can get the customer loyalty, or we can make the customer into a supporter or advocate level when it comes to customer ladder. So with that, there is I would mention that there is an interlink between satisfaction and loyalty, and the third one is the CRM. So I would like to give a brief definition of CRM, and under that there are certain steps like understand and anticipate the customer needs, and develop a product which would give a customer a superior service compared to the competitors, and with that we would be in a position to create a satisfied customer. So that's how would I like to approach this question, sir. So the ultimate this thing. So satisfaction leads to loyalty, and under the overall process of CRM, we would it is included in CRM. That's how I would like to answer the first question, sir.
Okay, fine. So we'll discuss at the last what to do. Then Dirshani, can I listen to you?
Yes. So for the first question, I think I would start by defining CRM, which is like it is the process of building and maintaining profitable customer relationships, and you try to deliver superior customer values and satisfaction. And then I would go on to explain how there is a lot of competition in the market. Whether if you, for example, if you take financial services industry, there's a lot of competition, and most companies they provide almost the same thing, like when it comes to the products and the service products and everything. So the attributes are really the same in every in every company. So the only thing that you can do to remain competitive is create a good relationship with your customers. So I would say that this can be done by improving customer satisfaction and customer loyalty. So I would say it's not the same. I would start by stating that these customer satisfaction and loyalty is not the same thing, but satisfaction is something that ultimately leads to loyalty. If you try to make the customer satisfied as much as possible. And then I would explain. I would explain how the defined satisfaction, it is how you the level to which the customer perceives the product's performance, and how you match match the customer's expectations. And then I would explain loyalties, which is how you keep the relationship, with how long the customer expects to maintain a relationship with you, and what makes them not move away from your company to another competitor. So I would build my answer upon that, explain that these two are not the same, and how satisfaction eventually leads to loyalty, and this is what is important to keep to maintain a good relationship, and is like two things that actually support CRM in a business. I think that's what I would discuss for the first question.
Right, that's a good approach. Much better. Fine. I think you have gone in a proper direction. So we'll listen to Dilush also. Dilush.
Yeah, when it comes to customer relationship management, what I feel is we should start it from the day one. The customer purchases a product, so we should differentiate what is satisfaction separately and what is loyalty separately. Satisfaction will lead to loyalty, so we should clearly say that satisfaction is customer receiving something more than the expected level of the performance. That means we should give something more than the price the customer pay, and with the proper CRM,
not more than receiving what is expected. So that is satisfaction. If you receive more than that, you go to a level called delight. Right? So
yeah, which will lead to loyalty at the end. Yeah, so that while defining them separately, and I think we can, I mean, with satisfaction and CRM, we can lead to loyalty. That's the way I will answer the question.
Right. Fine. Gavin, what do you think about it? Gavin, can I hear from you?
Yes. So I would usually start with the customer relationship, like what CRM is actually like. It's actually building and maintaining profitable customer relationships by delivering superior customer values and satisfaction. So I would start with that and explain how satisfaction and loyalty leads to good customer relationships. Actually, it's like how to maintain like to stay above the competitors by because when it comes to products and features and like services and all, it's all pretty much the same in many organizations. There could be like minor changes, but still like the only way to stay above the competitors is customer relationship, having a good customer relationship. And so to build a good customer relationship, we should go through several things like customer satisfaction and eventually customer loyalty, which also leads to a good customer relationship. So I would build a link with CRM through satisfaction and customer loyalty, something like that. So can you hear me?
Hello, Rangana. Sorry, I was talking to you while my mic was mute. Rangana, you are there? We'll listen to Rangana next.
Hello. Can you
Yes,
hear
yes,
me?
I can hear you, Rangana. Biru sir, sorry, before Rangana start, Biru sir, sorry, I have muted my mic and I was talking to you. But I acknowledged your answer. That is good. So we'll listen to Rangana now.
So I will also start the answer by defining.
Rangana, we can't hear you, Rangana.
Hold on. Hold on. Can you hear me now, sir?
Yes, yes, much better.
All right. So I will also start my answer by defining customer CRM, customer satisfaction and loyalty separately. First, the definitions on those I will explain, and then I will move from the link between customer satisfaction and the loyalty. Right? It's like the satisfaction is the main driver of the loyalty, but still. It does not always lead to customer satisfaction, does not always lead to customer loyalty, and the factors affecting that will be discussed, and say the expected performance, and I mean the perceived performance against expectation, how that link will be discussed in my answer. Say if the expectation is higher than the perceived performance, it will be a dissatisfaction. Likewise, that will be the link between those two will be discussed in my answer, and an example from financial industry, say between two banks, say by taking a product of two banks, and it will be discussed as an example in my answer, and then of course CRM, how the link between CRM and customer satisfaction will be then discussed, how we can how the customer retention will lead to customer loyalty will also be discussed in my answer. That will be the basic background on my answer.
Right. Okay, Rangan. That's good. So we'll have a chat after all of you finish. So we have only one left, I think. Which is can we listen from you also?
Yeah. we can explain what is CRM, and through CRM we can get a satisfied customer. Satisfied customer can be a loyalty customer. Through CRM, like to build a relationship, we have to first identify the needs, then develop a product, and having a good pricing, branding. People can explain that. And satisfaction and loyalty is different. If customer is having so many options, even if they stay with us, they are loyalty, and we can explain the loyalty ladder, how it works, like through that we can explain it.
Is that all, sister? Then how about CRM?
The CRM, we can give the definition, and we can explain how through CRM we can make a customer satisfied, and satisfied customer can become a loyalty customer. So CRM, it means first we have to understand the need and develop the product suiting the customer and have a good relationship. To get the relationship, we have to have a good pricing and a branding, physical appearance, people. We can explain that to CRM.
Okay, fine, Mrs. Guys and girls, will have a look. I will tell you how to structure the answer. I don't think none of you have done the second part. So I will leave it with you for me to give an answer, perhaps next week. But for this, I will give you a model, right? As to, I will tell you what is expected and how you should approach. I saw a little bit of a answer from Dilshani, where it is more towards what is expected. So let's have a chat. So if you would have written in this way, you may have not got your marks, right? Most of you would have got some mark, but not the expected level. Now this can come in a 5-mark question or as a 10-mark question. So I will explain you if it comes as a 10-mark question, how you will approach. Now this is what is happening in CRM paper. The question looks very, very simple, but expected answer from a postgraduate student is completely different, right? So some of the students approach it like diploma students or certificate level, and where they are not getting marks, and they are wondering, the question is so simple, we are written something, we are not passed. Yes, obviously, because you are not up to the postgraduate level, right? So what we are going to do is, let's have a chat as to how we should approach. Obviously, when you are having a question like this, you need to have an introduction going, right? So first is introduction. So in the introduction, you will talk about these are 3 interlinked concepts, right? But are different from each other. Although they are different from each other, they complement each other, right? So in approaching a CRM program, we have to look at all 3 concepts properly, right? So then the first concept under this is the satisfaction, right? The satisfaction. So now, as most of you said, obviously you have to talk about what is satisfaction, right? Satisfaction. So when you say what is satisfaction, you will first talk about meeting expectations, right? Expectations versus delivery, perceived value, right? Perceived value, right? So you will talk about what is satisfaction, right? And then you have to tell, okay, fine. Then satisfaction is the foundation. Someone's mic is on. Satisfaction is the foundation of trust, right? Trust and relationships, right? Relationships. Then you can also tell satisfaction can be managed. How do you manage it? You manage it by managing the expectations which are created through your communication, right? Communication channels, and then which is given to the customers, the SLAs. Then you can also improve the performance, right? So basically, you can work on expectations and delivery, right? This is how satisfaction is managed. And then you have to say satisfaction leads to loyalty, right? Satisfaction leads to loyalty. So this is the transferring point, right? And then you can move to loyalty, right? And very important thing is you will say loyalty is a deep concept than satisfaction, right? Deep concept than satisfaction, right? Then you have to say satisfied customers. Satisfied customer doesn't mean a loyal customer. Hari, loyal customer කෙනෙක් නෙමෙයි. ඒක කියන්නේ customer satisfy කියන්නේ ඒක loyalty කියලා අපිට කියන්න බෑ. හරි. So not the same. Basically say not the same. Not the same. Then you can talk about loyalty has its levels. Loyalty levels. Loyalty has its levels. You can explain customer loyalty ladder, but you are not going to talk about loyalty ladder here. You basically have to tell them, okay, there are different levels of loyalty, and the whole purpose of CRM is to take a customer from a prospect to a partner and improve the profitability of the customer, right? So CRM purpose to move from prospect to move a customer from a prospect to a partner. Making earn basically improve profits. Improve profits. Higher share of wallet, customer loyalty ladder, higher share of wallet, lifetime value. මේ වෙනස් concept ඕගොල්ලෝ කතා කරාට ඒවා explain කරන්න යන්න එපා. Then the examiner knows when you say we can earn a higher share of wallet. When you take a customer from prospect to a partner, we can earn a higher share of wallet. You don't have to explain share of wallet. ඒක මේකේ කෝ කැලලක් නෙමෙයි. share of wallet කියව examiner දන්නවා. Right? Then if you say, okay, make we can earn more profits when the relationship, when the loyalty gets stronger. That's it. The point for me then customer loyalty ladder examine that. Stage but you can say you take from prospect to prospect to a partner. Each level satisfaction is important, right? Then CRM CRM purpose then you can talk about CRM, right? So what is CRM? Profitable relationships, managing profitable relationships in a very simple way, right? Abhi make a definition profitable relationships. Don't know what then transition third point. Managing CRM is all about managing profitable relationships. So make acquiring a customer and retention. Acquiring retention, right? Satisfaction and loyalty, because why? Satisfied customers will have repeat business, so that there will be retention. Satisfied customers will have word of mouth and bring in prospects. So then it will help acquiring. So loyal customers will retain, and loyal customers will support you to acquire more customers. So these two concepts will eventually support you in these two activities, acquiring and retention, which are the two wheels of CRM, right? Two wheels of CRM. Then we can say, okay, so when you have satisfaction, when you work on satisfaction, we can move further to the other one. Okay, this is the conclusion, right?
It's 9:30.
Then subject matter kata karala iwarai, link ekava pennala iwarai examiner. Now you are moving to the conclusion, right? Conclusion. But under the conclusion, you can talk about these are interlinked. These are like basically interlinked, right? Interlinked and need to be managed. Need to manage as a whole, right? As a whole, right? And when you manage this properly, it will lead to more profitability, more profits, right? It will lead to more profits, right? The major, the introduction එක තුවාට කියන්න තියෙන්නේ introduction එකේ කියන්න තියෙන්නේ මේ වගේම කැලලක් තමයි interlinked concepts, මේක එකම දේ මේක different, these are different concepts, but complements each other, right? Complements each other. මේක තමයි ඔයාගේ ස්ට්‍රක්චර් එක වෙන්නේ. දැන් මේ ස්ට්‍රක්චර් එකේ තමයි ඔයා මේ විදිහට ස්ට්‍රක්චර් එකක් ගහගෙන ඉන්න ඕනේ. මේ ස්ට්‍රක්චර් එක තමයි ඔයා ලියන්නේ. Now you can explain. දැන් මෙහෙම කරගෙන යනකොට මේ සමහර තැන්වල you can bring in examples. For example අපි මෙතන ගමුකෝ. Example. කොහොමද example එකේ ඔයා කියනවා 24-hour loan. එතකොට මේකේ deliver within 24 hours. Right? So 24-hour loan නම් ඔයා දීපු promise එක, then you have to deliver it within 24 hours, right? You have to deliver it within 24 hours. If you don't deliver within 24 hours, then there will be dissatisfaction. You can explain, right? So likewise, you can bring in examples when you are going with this. So now this, I think, shows you and the approach that you should take. Right, so basically I'm sure now you understand how you should approach the question and write. If you write in this way, you will get full marks, otherwise you won't get. Then I'll give you 2-3 minutes to take this down. Then you have an idea how you should approach. Right, so take 2-3 minutes and write this down. I'm not going to send this to you with the PowerPoint presentation, right? Are you all clear? Any questions? Now, postgraduate students, hari me nikang answers liyanna ba. Tuti lamai liyana. Right, liyagan.
Sir, are you there?
Yes, Kevin, can.
Sir, like under, so when it comes to this content under satisfaction, loyalty, CRM, so just one example wage that will do, right?
Yeah. What me example එක ලියන්නේ එක වාක්‍යනේ පේනවද?
Yeah, something like මේකනේ 24-hour loan.
ඒක තමයි end on. දැන් මේක ඇවිල්ලා theoretical question එකක් නේ. So theoretical question එකකදී ඔයා theory එක explain කරන ගමන්ම එකක් දෙකක් answer. But there can be practical questions. For example, they will ask you how you will do it in your branch. Then there has to be more examples coming in for each part.
Like the second question that you gave about.
Yeah. Second question, you have some more examples coming in. So basically, every gap you talk about, it has to be. You have to speak about it, bringing in examples. Podi example දෙක තුනක් අරගෙන උදාහරණයකට telephone එක answer කරන එක can be an example, right?
Yeah, sir, got it. Thank you.
Sir, can you use examples that are not regarding like financial service industry for like general questions like this?
No problem. You can use it, but examiner sometimes restrict you there. Examiner will tell you to talk about how you do it in your branch or in your department, in your bank. So when you say like that, then you can't bring it. But otherwise you can certainly bring in. There is no restriction. even in such a question, if you bring in anything outside the banking sector or the financial sector, then there is no problem. Examples are important because the examiner will see whether you have really understood the concept. That is why the examples are there. And sometimes when you write it, you will get marks for your points. But when you write it and if your point is not clearly expressed, sometimes examiner will look at the example and will understand, okay, this guy is trying to tell this. Right? So the even if you don't put examples, you will get some marks, but examples will support your answer, because number one is even if you have messed up your point, examiner will give you marks. Number two, examiner will understand, okay, this student is knowledgeable, he knows what it is, right? And then the third factor, if the examiner has really asked you to put a question, that is to test how your application. So in that case, if you bring in from banking sector or the financial sector, you will be much, it's much better. But obviously, as you say, Deshani, for certain things you can't bring in from the financial sector. For that, you can bring in from anywhere else, right? Right. I'm sure that you have taken it down. So let's move on to the real subject today. So our subject today is about CRM implementation, right? So implementing a successful CRM project. So basically we are looking at CRM models and then the phases of implementation, where there will be a question to your paper, right? So first, let's look at the different CRM models. Now, the CRM models have been developed in order to see how a CRM program can be launched or can be implemented in an organization, and as to how you should approach a CRM program in your organization, right? So that is why the CRM models have been developed. So we are going to look at different CRM models which are actually being given, like the IDIC model. These are very famous models when it comes to CRMs. Then the QCI model and the value chain model. So the questions, if it is coming, it will come from these three models under CRM implementation section, right? So CRM, actually, if you really look at the whole concept, we know that it is about building, acquiring, retaining, and building profitable relationships. So the CRM models we are going to discuss fundamentally will focus on a few key areas. First one is customer satisfaction, then how to build loyalty, okay? Then how to enhance customer experience through customized products and services, then how competitive advantage is derived, and also it will talk about establishing strong multi-channel communication networks. So if you really look at all the CRM models that we are talking, all of those have these important characteristics in it. So as I have told you, we are looking at three famous models: IDIC model, QCI model, and the value chain model, which tells you how you should approach in developing a CRM model in your organization. So if you really look at the first one, IDIC model was developed actually by Peppers and Rogers, right? And this actually talks about 4 stages, right? And these 4 stages are interlinked, right? And they have their own dependencies. So they will tell you, okay, go through these 4 stages when you are approaching a CRM program. Now, in very simple sense, to identify, differentiate, right? And then interact and customize. Interact and customize. So let's look at one by one. First one is identify. Now, under this stage, what it says is, before you do anything, you need to devise a mechanism as to how you will identify the customer. Because if you don't know the customer, if you have not identified the customer proper, then you cannot build relationships. Relationships are built only when you identify a customer, right? So therefore, the first step is to identify the customer and actually basically understand their needs, right? And have a deep understanding. Right? Now, in order to do all these things, you have to have a proper information system which will support these, right? So identification, differentiation, interaction, all these things are talking about the importance of a information system. So based on the information that you receive, you need to identify. So we have discussed as to how we should identify. You can basically do research and also talk about different communication, keep an eye on different communication channels and gather information and understand who this customer is. What is the profile that we are serving, right? It can be as a bank about the national level, or it can be as a branch, the local level, right? The local level or a national level, or even in the cross-cultural levels, you basically understand who is this customer. Now, who is a Sri Lankan customer? What is his profile, right? Then someone might say, okay, what is the profile of the customer in Jaffna? What they like, what they don't like. what they think good and what they think bad, right? How should we approach? What are their needs, right? What are their businesses? What are the areas they work on, right? So that is the local level. Or maybe what is happening in what is the profile of the customers in Anuradhapura, goal, right? So likewise, you can go to local level or the national level, segments. Then even it can go to segments, right? So you try to understand who this customer is. The second one is to differentiate, right? Differentiate. So differentiate customer means you basically try to understand the differences between the customers that you have. First can be the customer by value to the organization. Now this is about the profitability of the customer. We are very clear that every customer is not going to give you the same profitability. It is not going to happen, right? So every customer has a different level of profitability towards your organization, right? So you need to basically understand, okay, what is the value of this customer to the organization, right? So you can talk about the value at present and the future value, the lifetime value. So basically I try to understand what is the value to the organization. Then second one, customers by the needs they have from the organization. This is what is customer is valuing, right? What is valued by the customer when you give when you work as an organization, right? So when you offer products and services, when you are trying to offer solutions, what is valued? Customer මොකද්ද ඔයාගේ වටිනවයි කියලා දකින්නේ. ඔයා customer වටින්නේ මොනවද ඔයාගේ? Right? So in a point of view of the customer, what is the value he expects from you and what he is valuing? And for example, as I told you earlier, maybe for silver cards or the the cards offered to the low income segments with limits like 20,000, 30,000, 50,000, they may not value a travel insurance cover being put in as a product feature. But customers who are spending millions, for example, their limits are like 2 million, 3 million, their Visa, Infinite or Signature kind of brands, and they are frequent travelers. Now they will value the travel insurance cover. They will value the travel insurance cover. So what is valued by the customer, you have to understand. Otherwise, what will happen is you will give the cover to the classic card holders, the silver card holders who are having 50,000 limits, and you will give the cover to the people who are having 1.2 million to 3 million limits, Visa, Infinite, Signature. That Infinite and Signature segment, they might value it. The 50,000 classic card segment might say, who cares? They don't value. Right? So you have to see whether the customer will really value what you offer. So two things when it comes to understanding and differentiating. So you have to differentiate customers based on the value that they give to the organization. In simple terms, profitability. And also you have to differentiate customers as to what they value from the organization. What they value from the organization. So two different concepts. Right? So only when you do that, second point again, okay, only when you do that, you will be able to right. So only when you do this, you will be able to allocate resources effectively. Otherwise, you are wasting your resources. So only when you do such a thing, you will be able to allocate your resources effectively and decide what we should offer to the customer and which customer we should give customized service, which customer we should give direct to the call center, which customer we should have a relationship manager. So likewise, you can basically discuss or decide as to how we will improve the effectiveness of using our resources, right? So that is the second stage, that is identify. Second one is differentiate. Now third stage is about interact. Now interacting with customers is important or very critical for you to understand the customer expectations, their relationship levels, and the suppliers of brands, other suppliers of brands, so basically your competitors, right? So here we are talking about how you will interact them and understand or basically communicate with them. So we are looking at the multi-channel communication, and also how you will engage them, with your brand. Right? So here you can talk about the loyalty programs, then the events, the clubs, right? Basically you have, if you go to Mercedes, you have Mercedes-Benz Club, right? So that club is a set of customers who have got together, and they are actually they are all Mercedes-Benz owners who will talk about the brand and what they should do, and they have their community, right, being built, and the demo supports them. They give some activities, they give them some events, right? So it's the club. So if you really look at the Harley Davidson, it also has the same concept, right? Then loyalty programs. If you really look at Keels, now they have the loyalty program. With the loyalty program, they will gather information, right? Information about the customer behavior, right? Information about the customer profile, right? So basically, if you are a loyalty member of Keels, the Keels can tell you who you are. You are like this. You shop every month in this frequency. You come every week. You come at this time generally. You buy these products, right? Whether you are a vegetarian or not, right? Whether you have a family or not, all those can be assessed, or basically your profile can be assessed or understood by looking at your behavior patterns in the loyalty program. So likewise, the loyalty programs can also be used to engage customers, right? So you will give, okay, for loyalty customers, 25% off. So you generally go there, right? That's what they do on Nexus members, special discounts, and they send you SMS message. And even for a bank, the bank might say okay, you will have 10 times points. So if you are earning 1 point for 100, now it's 10 points for 100. Now you are looking at, my God, right? Okay, if I use my card, I get 10 points. So you will go and use it. So likewise, loyalty programs can be used to activate, engage customers as well, right? So the customer interactions not only help you to communicate about you to the customer, but it also helps you to understand the customer, gather information about the customer, which eventually helps you to customize your products. That is the next stage, to customize your products. So based on what you learn from the customer and the previous stages that you have gone through, then you can now move to the customization, to customize your offer and your communication, your advertisements, communication approach, strategies, to ensure that you meet the expectations of the customer and you get the highest value from them, right? So sometimes you might go for mass customization, or sometimes you might go for tailoring. So that can be for the segments, or even it can drill down to individual level, right? So products and services of the organizations are customized based on the needs of the customer, which you have identified at the interaction stage, or perhaps in the other stages like the identify and differentiate level, right? Now, to do all these things, you need to have your communication channels in place where you learn from the customer, and also you will make the customer learn about you, and then put it into actions by changing your product proposition or the offer to more suit the customer. So if you really look at the IDIC model, it can be divided into two. First part is to analyze, identify, differentiate. You try to analyze the customer, understand the customer. Now, the second part is about interaction and customization, which talks about action, what you should do, right? What you should do based on what you have learned from your analysis stage, right? So this is the IDIC model. So then basically when implementing your CRM, when you are approaching to implement CRM, you can think about this model as well. Then the second model is the QCI model. QCI model, it's a more towards a customer management model, right? It's more towards a customer management model. It talks about the link between the organization and the external environment very specifically, right? So if you really look at this, you find external environment here and customer experience. So external environment influences customer experience, and customer experience in return will influence the external environment. Now, how? For example, in the external environment, you might see an advertisement where they say, okay, within 24 hours, within 48 hours, we give you a housing loan. Now, this is exposure that you received from the external environment. And sometimes one of your friends or family or your social group, or even in the social media, you may see people talking about getting housing loans within 48 hours from this particular organization. Now, this is an input to you, right, from the external environment. Now, based on the input, you will go and patronize that particular organization. So you will apply for a housing loan. Now, there you are going to have your experience. So they will give you within 24 hours. You are delighted. You will go and talk about it in the social media, in your friends circles. So which will add input to the external environment, which is your experience. Now, that is what you see as reviews, comments from the customers, sometimes in the e-commerce model. Then if you get a bad experience, for example, in the external environment, you have got cues that you are going to get it within 48 hours, but when you really go and try to take the loan, it is going to take more than a week or 72 hours or more than that. You are disappointed. So that is also being communicated to the external environment in ways of your reviews, word of mouth, right, comments in the website, so on and so forth. So that external environment and the customer experience have its own interlink, where it feeds you and you feeds the environment back. Then external environment affects the analysis and planning also of the organization. Now, we talked about external environment. We said there is a macro environment which talks about legal, political, technological changes. With the changes happening in the macro environment, the whole customer behavior patterns, the expectations will also change. Now, one of the examples we took is Nokia, right? So when the Nokia was having 50% of the market share a long time back, when Apple came with the touch screens and the graphics, they couldn't understand the difference. So as a result, what happened? They lost the market share. Being a giant, now they are nowhere, right? And same with the camera industry. When the phones started coming with very high quality cameras, high resolution cameras, the small time camera business is being threatened, right? So the external environment, the differences that is happening, certainly will have an input on how you should analyze and plan your approach to the CRM or to the organization, right? So external environment feeds in. And then even in your micro environment, you have suppliers, customers, where the customer behavior patterns change, where the suppliers have changes. For example, now there is a thing where the suppliers talk about a shortage of chips that you use for credit cards and debit cards, right? So now why the suppliers have found that it is more lucrative for them to generate chips and give it to other industries, right? So they are not giving due attention. Basically, they are shifting their attention and the resources to other industries. And at the same time, with the pandemic, there is a shortage. So if you have not planned properly, you will have to say to the customer, sorry, we don't have cards to give you, which is a bad experience, right? So external environment is actually impacting on how you analyze and plan. Then when you analyze and
It's
plan,
10 o'clock.
One of the key elements of that is customer proposition. Now, if you look at customer proposition, it talks about value that you offer and the price. Now, as we say, perhaps Emirates may be offering high value, high price. So when you fly with Emirates, they are giving you a superb service. When you fly with Singapore Airlines, maybe they are giving you a superb service, but at a cost, at a price, higher price, right? So perhaps you might go in Deccan Air, or you might go in earlier, long time back, we had Mihin Air in Sri Lanka, kind of budget airline, where they may not give you the same service. They may not give you the fancy foods, drinks, and the service, but they will actually take you from one destination to another, right? They will address the core purpose. So the model is low value, low price. Low value, low price. So there can be high price, high value. There can be low price, low value, and there can be a situation where you will have high value, low price, right? Perhaps they are giving it to you at a discount for some reason. For example, the government may have subsidized it, right? Or maybe the company is giving it as a service, right? So they will give you a higher value at a lower price. The only losing proposition is that you have high price, low value. That is a losing proposition. Yeah, if you implement, you are going to lose. So you can see what you offer, the value you offer, and the price you get from the customer, and develop your customer proposition. Now, this developing the customer proposition is influenced by the analysis and planning, which is also influenced by the external environment, and then the customer experience. So you have to look at all these things and come into your customer value proposition. And then you have management activities which actually helps to manage your customer experience. So your customer experience is managed by the customer value proposition, customer management activities, and the measurements that you have to measure the experience and take corrective actions. Okay. So in the customer management activity, you have activities from the time that you get a customer. Now, in the first one, you can look at the targeting. Now, that is where you look at a prospective customer, a prospect, and then convert the prospect into customer conversion, and then keep on satisfying and converting from customer to client, right? And basically, you will get to know the customer. So you'll try to understand his value and proposition, and then understand the customer, and then you offer the basic services, right? Basic services, and then you satisfy and retain the customer, retention activities. So when you retain the customer and keep on doing it, and then you will have value development, right? So you will get more value from the customer. And then when the customer gets dissatisfied, you have to manage dissatisfaction. Now that is what we talked about, service recovery, and basically win back the customer, and then you go on like that, right? So you are going to manage the customer activity, looking at how you are going to acquire the customer, acquisition, right? And then you have penetration, right, where you go on an aggressive drive to get your customers in the segment, and then the retention, to retain that you have acquired, right? So you have to efficiently manage all these activities so that you'll be able to create a better CRM model, right? And then you also have to have measurements where you have certain measures being in place to measure the customer experience and the success of the management activities, which again, as you see, the arrows are going both ways, which are feeding each other, right? And in order to do all these things, you need to have people and organization which are actually having links between all these activities. So they are involved with analysis and planning. They are involved with developing customer propositions. They are involved with developing or managing customer experience, and they are also involved in developing and assessing, analyzing, revising measurements, right? So they also interact with this whole model. And then in order for the people to do this and the organization to do this, it needs infrastructure. So under infrastructure, they need customer information, which need to be gathered from multi-channels. Then the technology support, where you talk about databases, data mining, data warehouses. Then you need to have process management, where you develop processes, design processes that are customer friendly and will provide you the ability to generate more value to the customer, right? So it's a customer management model, that features people performing processes and using technology to assist their activities, right? So if you really look at the this customer management activity, this management activity wheel is talking about prospects which are converted to customers, then understanding the customer, delivering the basics. Here it talks about retention, and here it talks about service recovery. These are all stuff that we have discussed during our class. So if you really look at the QCI model actually revolves around series of activities related to external environment, customer experience, people and organization, infrastructure, which helps to manage customers, right? Which helps to manage customers, right? Actually, the importance of this model is that this model talks about the influence of external environment and the importance of giving due concerns over it. So if you really look at the customer experience, you know, the customer experience is affected by the customer proposition. Now, this is the value and the price, right? So what is the value you give and what is the price you get? So obviously it will affect the customer experience. Then the customer management activity, right? This part. So how you will handle the prospect and what you do, we just discussed about that. That also affects the customer experience. Then the third, measurements. Now measurements also affect the customer experience. So this customer experience is basically affected by all these elements, right? So this customer experience is affected by these three. Then if you look at customer proposition in a nutshell, value provided and the price. Then what are the customer management activities? Capturing customers, targeting, conversion, selling, retaining, and winning back the customer. So these are the activities. Then measuring. Now this talks about monitoring, maintaining, and following up results. Now all these things will eventually affect the customer experience. Then in order to run the entire model, you need to develop infrastructure. That is where you have to invest and develop if you are really want to having the intention to run a customer relationship model. Actually, in the modern terms, you really need technology support to gather customer information. So there has to be some channels where you will gather information about the customers from the touch points, and you do time-to-time surveys to gather information. And you need technology support because you're talking about thousands of customers or lakhs of customers. So you can't do it manually. You need technological support. You need to gather basically when customer interacts with your organization. So like transaction databases, emails, complaints, right? And then the customer calls, all that is happening around the organization, you need to gather information from customer touch points. Now, in order to do that, you cannot do it manually. You need to have proper technology being implemented. Now, this is where the IT comes into play, and most of the CRM softwares are developed in such a way where they will gather information from the customer touch points. And then you need to also have process management, where you will focus on your processes and develop those to support the customer. So it has to be customer-friendly processes, right? Customer-friendly processes where the customer experience is much soothing or much delightful when they go through the process. Now, these things will facilitate the CRM implementation. Right? CRM implementation. Without looking at this infrastructure, like that, when we want to develop the country, we have to develop the roads, electricity, telephone, water. Likewise, when you are going to implement your CRM program, you need to develop customer information systems, technology, and processes to support your CRM implementation. And then you also need to work on people, because we know, especially in the service sector, the service that is offered or the experience that is offered cannot be separated from the person or the people that offers it. So therefore, you need to have the right people at the right place, the competent people who will support this whole exercise, and the organization need to be geared with its culture and its policies to support the model, support the CRM implementation, right? So you need to have the infrastructure, people and organization being ready to support all these other activities, right, which are given in this model. So this is the QCI model, which talks about how you will approach a CRM program, right? Fine. So we have now passed 10, but I wanted to finish 2 models. So then we will next we will take the other two models, and then we will move on to discuss on the implementation. So let's take a small break. Now it's 10:11. So we'll meet up at 10:30 again, or 10:30 again, right? Okay. So take a break and come again. Next one we are looking at is the CRM value chain model, where we are looking at 2 key stages, the primary stage and the supporting conditions. So if you really look at the primary stage, we are talking about the customer portfolio analysis, right, where you try to understand different types of customers. Then the customer intimacy, that is getting to know about your customers, identifying their needs, requirements, and the profiles. Then network development, that is actually talking about developing a network among the organizations so that you can get information and then also feed in information when you receive some inputs. Then the next one is value proposition development, and so you develop the value that you offer to the customer and the price you are going to charge from the customer. And then based on that, you go on to the activities related to managing the relationship. So it talks about more towards how to manage the customer and the customer lifetime value, and so on and so forth. Then in order to do all these activities, you need to work on these supporting conditions, right? So you need to work on IT and data management processes. So as we know, when you are a big organization, to manage data, to manage inputs, and then to develop decisions and patterns, you need a proper database. That is what we discussed under data mining, data warehouse, and so on and so forth. So you have to create databases and applications which will easily support you to gather and also provide data to the parties that needs such information. Then you also need to work on your HR management process, because end of the day, the people drive the whole thing. So unless your people are oriented to support you with the CRM activities, and they are competent, then you will not be able to work on that. So you need to work on with your HR to find out, to basically bring in competent people and allocate them to work that fits more to them. For example, if it is an extrovert person who likes to dine, wine, and talk, you might put them into the business side or towards the front line. Or if it is a person who's an introvert who likes to basically focus on one thing and then doesn't like association with others much, then you might put him into the back office. So likewise, based on their personality, the talent, competence, you have to find what is the job that suits them. The next is to work with your processes. That is to make sure that you relook at the processes from customer point of view and ask the question whether these processes are basically adopted by the customer or the customer is not really happy. So you have to redesign the processes thinking about the customer journey and the customer experience. The next one is to develop the culture and to provide leadership, which is the critical factor for the success of any CRM project. Because if you do not build that culture where everybody value, believe, certain the benefits and the value of CRM, then you will not be able to run this as a project. Right? So it is, as I told you, CRM is not a project or an activity. It is a change of culture. It is a change of business philosophy. Basically, how you do it when it comes to your business, from the person who sweeps the floor to the CEO. Right? So you have to develop that culture. Then, in order to do that, you need to give a proper leadership. Right? So leadership matters a lot, because if you really look at why the CRM initiatives fail, majority of those fail because the leadership is not giving their full commitment, right? And the leadership is also expecting short-term gains than the long-term sustainability. Now, that is management thinking, whereas the managers are focusing on short-term in order to get a higher profit and higher bonuses, and also higher performance, to show higher short-term performance and get their next promotions. So that is the management thinking. But leadership thinking is different. Leadership thinking is all about, you look at profitability and sustainability, the long-term growth. So they are people who look at the short-term as well as the long-term sustainability of the organization. So they will focus both on profitability, sustainability, and the long-term development, survival of the organization. So you need to have such leadership coming in to drive the CRM culture and support all the activities that we talked about in the primary stage. So once you do all these activities, it will eventually leads to customer relationships and profitability, right? And profitability. So this is developed by Francis Butler. Basically, this is the value chain that we are talking about. So if you really look at it, in the primary stage, focus on customer. Secondary stage, focus on profitability. So if you really look at the primary stage, we are looking at how to analyze your portfolio. So there you are talking about segmentation, value identification, differentiation, then lifetime value of the customer. Then the second one is customer intimacy, knowledge about the customer, then the customer knowledge database that is being created. And then network development talks about creating a network of suppliers, manufacturers, employees. Now here, there is a holistic view. They are not talking about employee and customer relationship, but they're talking about developing a network. As I told you, for you to deliver what the customer require, you need to have a proper network of suppliers, manufacturers, employees, investors, technology distribution, retailers, all those. Because end of the day, all the activities are going to impact on the customer. So as I told you in the previous example, when the suppliers of chips increase their prices and go on a short supply, it will affect the experience of your customers if you have not planned your card ordering properly, right? So then you have to incur cost, and as well as the customer experience is affected. So how do you ensure uninterrupted supply? How do you ensure that your suppliers will provide priority to you? Now, these are all aspects that you need to consider if you are going for a better experience. You can't just have a better experience ignoring the network in the business. Then value proposition is talking about the value that you will create and the price that you will charge, which eventually leads to satisfaction or the dissatisfaction. Then customer life cycle, where you talk about managing the customer life cycle, and that is about lifetime value of the customer. Right? So when you manage the life cycle of the customer from the time that he enters to your organization and part the organization due to death or the closure of organization, that life cycle need to be managed in a way that you will gain the highest profit from the customer. So here the concept moves from a mere transaction to lifetime value, and when you build such concept and look at lifetime value of the customer, you're talking about customer equity, where you have come across this word customer equity earlier. So customer equity refers to the total lifetime value of the customers in your organization. So this is the value chain model that we have to talk about under CRM. Right. So with those three models, let's move on to CRM implementation. So CRM implementation, we are looking at it in 6 stages: developing the CRM strategy, build the CRM project foundation, specify needs and select partners, implementing the product, managing the change, and evaluating performance. Right. So if you look at the first phase, it's about develop CRM strategy. CRM strategy, as you know, is not a tactical strategy. It's a long-term strategy which talks about the future of the organization. So it's a high-level plan, a plan of action that aligns people, processes, technology, all what is available in the organization to finally achieve customer-related goals. Right? So basically, you can say in very simple sense, it's a strategy that will convert the organization to focus on the customer and drive its business to get the best out of the customer. So in the CRM strategy, you need to first, before developing your strategy, you need to first do a few things which are common to the strategy and the planning process. First one is the situation analysis. So you basically look at what segments we serve, right? The market offerings that we have in each segment, and then the channels that we are reaching those segments, right? So you can, even if you look at the bank, you can basically look at the segments that you are serving, then what kind of offer that you are given to them, and what are the channels. For example, you say, okay, you have minor savings account and senior citizens, right? So what are the segment is minors, right? So what is your offer to them? What is your offer that you have given to them? What is their product price based promotion? And then what are the channels? How are you reaching your the minors? Then senior citizens. What is the segment? What is the profile of the segment? And then what have you offered to them? And how are you going to reach them? Right? So you have to look at the situation. Then you also need to develop objectives and goals. So what are our objectives? Enhance customer satisfaction and retention, enhance customer loyalty, enhance revenue and reduce cost. So these are the 3 key goals or the objectives that will run in a CRM program. Okay? How to enhance customer satisfaction and retention, how to enhance customer loyalty and take them through the loyalty ladder, then how to enhance revenue and reduce costs. Right? Then if you will misunderstood, I will put a stop here. Much better. Right. Identify people and processes and technology requirements. Right. Now, in order to do whatever you are going to plan and whatever you are going to do on the CRM, you need to first look at your infrastructure. Right. You need to look at your people, processes, technology requirements. So identify required resources and associate cost for required resources to achieve objectives. So when you are developing your CRM strategy, you have to ask the question, okay, when we are going to launch this or basically have this strategy going, what are the types of people we require? How many people we need? What competencies? What are the changes we need to do to the processes? How are you going to do this? Then what is the technology that we have to acquire in order to run this, right? So then what is the cost associated with each task, right? So you need to look at this and plan it, and then also ask the question, how are we going to invest? What is the cost revenue, cost benefit analysis? Now in this stage, you have to be very careful, because if your management is driven by the number people, that is basically who are actually looking at only the numbers rather than looking the business in a holistic manner, they might tell you, okay, see, you implement CRM, how long it will take? What is the benefit in the first year? Now, sometimes it is not easy for you to quantify such a qualitative concept like CRM. Because when you launch the CRM program, you will not gain short-term benefits. It will have a very long-term benefit and a return which will come over time, and sometimes you may not measure it as it is because it will come in very diverse forms, right? So when you invest on developing a relationship, how do you measure? It's very difficult. It may not get developed within first 2-3 years. Sometimes it takes long time, but at a particular point it will improve and start giving you revenue. So at that point it is difficult, and the contribution it will have towards the brand perception, the overall image, very difficult to capture in quantity form, right? Quantify, right? Then you really look at the CRM from a revenue and a cost perspective. You can certainly say CRM will increase revenue. How? CRM will support you to convert more suspects into prospects, right? And then prospects into customers, right? Then more cross-selling, deep selling, upselling. Now these things can be done with CRM, right? We have discussed all this, right? Then more accurate pricing, because when it comes to CRM, you are gathering information and you are well aware of the customer, so you can bring in the accurate pricing that will attract the customer. Then high level, and also you can basically reduce waste and improve the efficiency of your resources, which will eventually support pricing it in a very competitive way. Then higher level of customer satisfaction and retention. So when you have CRM programs in place, your customer satisfaction levels are high, and as a result of that, it will come to retention. Then higher level of positive word of mouth and leads. Okay? So when you run a CRM program and satisfy your customers, it will generate a higher level of positive word of mouth, and it will bring in new leads to you, right? New leads. I will put it as new leads, so easy for you. New leads, right? So that is there. Then more ideas, more sales, and repeat business, right? Because you are going to interact with the customer, and the employees will have more communication opportunities. So you get more ideas. Because of your relationship, you get more sales, and then you repeat businesses. So these are some of the ways how a CRM program can increase revenue. Then how it will reduce cost. Because CRM is going to improve idea generation, lead generation, which will eventually get you new customers and new businesses, right? So getting a new customer is obviously a huge cost. You have to do a lot of advertisement, campaigns to get those. But if you are having a proper CRM program and very customers with good relationship with you, then the investment to bring in new customers will be less, because your customers are going to serve as salespeople. They're going to talk good about your organization and get more people to apply or come into your organization. Then lower customer acquisition cost. Now here, two things. When you have a CRM program and a positive image, brand name, positive word of mouth is created, the more and more customers will come to you. So it's easy for you. You don't have to incur a lot of cost. Number two, when a customer comes to you and you invest some money on him, he will stay for a long time, so that you can basically spread your cost to a longer period, right? And it will give you more opportunity for you to utilize or benefit out of the cost that you incur. Then more efficient account management, right? So in the CRM, you're talking about getting to know the customer. So when you know the customer and you understand his profile, it will be more efficient for you to manage the account. Even a very simple example, if you have a CRM program, when someone calls you, you get his profile onto the screen, right? And when you are approaching the customer, you will know whether he has a credit card, whether he has a savings, whether he has current account, whether he has FDs, what is the value, what is the profitability of the customer. All these things will come to you, right? So that maybe what your treasury, the relationship, the card center relationship, the branch relationship, all captured, and the customer is basically profiled, so that it's very effective and very efficient when you approach to take decisions and deal with the customer. So because you know the customer well, right? So then the other one is less waste in marketing campaign, because in CRM you are going to understand the customer first, identify the customer profile, and then approach. So there will be no lesser waste on resources, because whatever you are going to do is more effective because you have developed in knowing the customer or changes of this behavior pattern. So whatever you do is more effective than just doing it blindly to capture the customers. Then it will also reduce customer service cost, because more loyal customers, it's easy for you to serve them. They understand, they know your organization. And then efficient front office process, because when you have CRM systems in place, your front office people are well educated, well aware as to how they should handle different types of customers, right? So if you really look at how CRM is going to increase revenue and reduce cost, you can summarize the entire thing we have learned in the past into these points, and there can be a very good chance that your examiner may question you about how the CRM is going to increase revenue and reduce cost for an organization, which you need to elaborate or basically write using the points that we discussed just now. So the phase 1 is all about planning, right? Developing your strategy. The phase 2 is about building the project foundation, right? How to implement the CRM. Number 1 is that you need to understand and identify who are the stakeholders, right? Who are the stakeholders that are going to contribute and will have an impact when you make the change, right? So as we know, when you do a CRM, when you run a CRM project, it's an organization-wide program, and the people, then there are several stakeholders who need to support and who will get impacted. For example, senior managers, they need to support the changes that are required in processes, technology, and the people. Then the users, how they will use the system will decide how they will generate value. You can have the world's best, most sophisticated system, but if the users are not competent, then you will not be able to use it. Then the sales staff, marketing staff, they are going to they get affected and they have to contribute. Then customer service agents plays a huge role. Then call center staff, business partners, your IT staff, all those segments are stakeholders in developing a CRM project.
It's 11 o'clock.
You need to basically ensure that you involve them at the early stages, not at the middle or at the end. Because if you involve them at the early stages, you're going to develop the project with them, and they are going to be part of your project plan. That will reduce resistance and will support successful implementation, right? Because they are also part of the whole plan. And so get them involved at the beginning, not at the middle. Then it is not their baby. But if they get them involved at the beginning, it will become their baby and they will support. If you really look at the research done by Fred Davis on new technology acceptance, he said it depends on the perceived ease of use and perceived usefulness. How your staff will look at how easy to use the technology and how important it is. So if they look at CRM software as a complicated one, and it's not going to support more and it's a waste of time, they will resist. But if you make them understand that it's easy to use the CRM software, they can get a lot of information, they can get a lot of value, then there will be less resistance. So you have to make sure that the users are being conditioned to look at the CRM software or the project that you are going to launch is not a difficult thing for them, and it is very useful for them. So in that case, they will not resist. Then you need to get your staff to engage with the project early. For example, if you are if you're going to launch a new CRM software, you get them to come and test it at the user acceptance testing level, UAT level. So they come even before the system is launched. People are invited to test, check, and give their feedback, so on and so forth, so that when it is implemented, it is going to be their baby, and they're not going to resist to it. And they have gone through it. They know what it is, what is coming, and basically they are prepared. Okay? So rather than dumping it or forcing it onto into people, you can basically make them accept it by going through the whole process. Then the next one is to establish governance structure. Right? So governance structure should be put in place to ensure that project roles and responsibilities are properly defined and properly allocated. There can't be confusions as to who will handle what and who is responsible. Right? There has to be someone who is running the project manager or the project director, who has the overall responsibility on the project timelines, deliverables, and the cost. Then you can also develop a steering committee where you have cross team, where you have different types of competencies from different parts of your organization coming in to steer the project, and who will take responsible policy decisions, right? And since you are getting them from diverse backgrounds, there will be more representation of your organization in the steering committee. Then there has to be a program team who will really look at in developing or running the program, and they should also comprise of representatives from major stakeholder groups that we talked about: senior managers, supply chain, the customer service agents, call center agents. So those who are actually affected by or going to take ownership of the whole project, you have to get them to represent in this program team and support in developing the program, CRM program. And you have to give them the responsibility to implement the project successfully, which they will eventually implement. Then here you're going to take some people to run the lead roles. Now, lead roles are basically leaders who will drive the change, right? So perhaps in your branch level, you may have branch representatives, you may have RM office representatives who are having that the leadership quality to get together people and run the project, right? And then you will get them to have their own teams and manage the implementation and the communication, right? So these are people who you will pick based on the leadership qualities that they will have, and you will tell them to have their own teams and drive or lead the change. And make sure that you, when you are developing the governance structure, to select right people to the right position, and also make sure that the communication in place, right, to get the feedback, to get the support from all the stakeholders, and also to provide the right information accurately, precisely to the stakeholders. Then after that, you have to identify the change management needs. Now, CRM is not about just another project. It's a total change of the culture. It's a total change of the business philosophy, right? and it is going to take your organization from more product factory oriented philosophy to a philosophy that is centered, which is a customer centric philosophy, right? So when you are changing the culture of the organization, where you address the values and beliefs, deep held norms of your organization, and where people are more comfortable in a traditional structure, you need to have a proper change management strategy to manage such a change organization wide, right? So then we have to talk about the change management, which we will talk later, looking at different change management models. Give me a second. Right. So the next one is to identify the project management needs, right? So you need to identify the whole project properly, looking at your organization, the timelines and the resources you have, and then ensure that you have a plan, project plan, right? So the project plan will tell you how you will move from the present status to the desired status, right? Then you need to appoint a project manager or a project director who will lead the whole thing, and obviously it has to be a senior position, because that project manager or the leader have to coordinate with entire organization and make sure that he has the authority to get people to do what is required by the project, right? And if you are finding it difficult to source such a person inside the organization, then you may shift to a consultancy group where you get expertise by hiring consultants to drive the project. So in a project management level, as much as the coordination and communication is important, it's very important that you have a plan and timelines to achieve your targets, because most of the projects will fail because they do not plan it proper with timelines. So you can use advanced techniques such as the Gantt charts, critical path analysis, program evaluation and review techniques in running the projects. Now you can do your self-study into these three areas, which I'm not going to go into detail, which is a different area under project management. Then you also need to understand the critical success factors, which are success factors that will tell you, or basically that you need to focus on in order for your project to become successful. Now, these are attributes and variables that are significantly impacting the business outcomes, right? So unless you address these things, and if you don't get these things right, then your project will not become a success, right? So these are must to have for the project success. So once you agree on critical success factors at the beginning, it is easier for you to drive the project and manage the project, monitor the project. For example, we can have a thing like well-developed knowledge management system, suitable IT infrastructure to manage information, top management support. These are critical factors. Now, if you miss any of these, then your project will not become successful. For example, if the top management is not supporting you, then you might find it very difficult to get the support across the organization. So if you really look at the organization, CRM, always remember CRM is a very risky business because it's not just launching a system in the organization. It's basically changing the whole culture. So if you really look at the CRM initiatives, you have seen 2/3 of the CRM initiatives generally fail. And if you ask the question, what are the reasons? There are several reasons, out of which we can highlight 3 key reasons. First one is lack of top management support. Now, when someone says we're going to run a CRM program, they come and tell, okay, CRM, we are going to do this, that, and talk about it like the soda bottle. And then eventually when you launch it, it is a real time-consuming exercise, which is a long-term exercise. They lose interest in the middle. And they expect results in a very short period. But it's not going to happen. So that they lose interest and they stop supporting. So lack of top management support eventually will break the whole project and it will get upset. So that they will tell, okay, we have launched a system, we have invested this much of money, but there is no success. Yes, there is no success because you have not managed it properly. You have not looked at the whole cycle, and basically you have focused in a very narrow sense to buy a system. It's not buying a system and implementing. It has, as I told you in the CRM models, you have to look at the whole business and relearn or basically change it to the CRM philosophy. Right? Then second one is poor project management. Not having a proper project management being implemented, or a project manager who will look at the total project and manage it within a timeline. Then the third factor is resistance by the end users to adapt new technology. So you implement a CRM system and you go and tell to the people, tomorrow onwards you have to use this. If you don't use, you are sacked. If you don't use, we will demote you. People will not do that. So you have to make sure that they understand the value of the system and adapt it accordingly and support them, because all the people are not IT savvy. When you are launching digital programs, I have gone through it. When you try to launch a digital platform, there are a lot of people who doesn't know how to handle it. So they come and give you grievances. At that time, you should listen to them and support them rather than laughing at them. Because I remember one time, there was this fellow who comes and you don't know about IT, what is this man, you are very poor in IT. Now, that person is becoming sarcastic and trying to push us to use. Then he say, okay, you keep your system, we are not bothered. Right? And we are going to resist. Right? So we are going to say, no, this system is not good, we can't do this, we can't do that. And then eventually you have to put a lot of effort to prove that it is right and win your people back. And so you must not challenge, or you must not become too sarcastic with people. You have to support, because people have different levels of competencies when it comes to their technology. Right? That is something that you have to understand. Then you need to identify the key risk factors and develop strategies to mitigate those. Right? So if you really look at the risk point of view, why the CRM initiatives may fail, there has been a research done by Gartner, who has come up with key reasons, common reasons that he has observed, right? I think something went wrong with the connection. Give me a second. Right. So we were discussing failure factors, right? So Gartner has come up with common reasons that he has understood, or basically he has come across when it comes to the failures. First one out of those is management that has little customer understanding or involvement. So your top management or the management has very low commitment and understanding about the customer and the value of the customers, so that they are not supporting you. Then rewards and incentives tied to non-customer objectives and not in line with CRM projects. So your rewards and incentives are given to areas like reducing cost, right? Basically reducing the use of resources, things like that. But it is not linked to customer satisfaction. So what will happen is people will eventually work on reducing cost at the expense of customer satisfaction. Similarly, there are other objectives where you link the non-customer objectives to the incentive plan, and if you ignore the customer related objectives to the incentive plan, what will happen is people will work towards the non-customer related objectives, which will give them the benefit, whereas they will ignore the customer related objectives. So in developing the reward plan, you must ensure that the people are given both customer related objectives and incentives, and also non-customer related incentives, both, for them to manage the whole business in a customer centric manner. Then there can be a situation where the organizational culture is not customer focused. So they are more product oriented. Like people like Henry Ford, who will say, okay, if it is a car, that has to be black, we don't care, right? So if you are in that culture where the organization has a culture where they talk about things which are not customer friendly and they are not bothered about the customer, then you will find it is difficult for you to run a CRM plan. Now, even if you look at the banking sector, there are certain banks, when you go to those banks, you will feel, or basically you will understand what their culture is. They are not bothered about you. They are not bothered about the customer, right? In such banks, we will find the bank employees think they are the king, and customer is not the king. They are not the king, right? So basically, the way that the customer is treated or even asked why he has come is very rude. So if you go to such organizations where the organization is more towards non-customer related objectives, then to change their mindsets, it will be a very, very challenging task for you. Then limited or no input from the customer, whereas the customers are not interacting with you, or you may not have certain avenues to get information from the customer, so that you can't understand the customer and the changing requirements. So then you will fail, right? Then over dependency on technology. Now this is where you think when you purchase a CRM system and launch it, everything will happen. It doesn't happen in that way, right? So it is something that will support the program, but the whole CRM is all about the change of business method, business philosophy, the culture. It has to be done by and large by people, right? And the leadership. Then lack of specifically designed mutually reinforcing processes, where your organization is focusing on mainly the processes in silos, right? So one department work in isolation, another department work in their own way, so that there is no complementing or mutually reinforcing processes. So in that case, you will fall into trouble. Then when you don't have quality customer data and information, then little coordination between departmental initiatives and projects. So people are running projects so that other person doesn't know. And sometimes when you go to talk to the customers, you say it is not there, but another department say it is there, because they have already done the project, but they are not communicated. Right? They have done the project, but they have not done a small part related to you, so that the customer has to go through the hassle anyway. Right? Now, these are practically happening. We have seen these things happening, and when you don't have such coordination, your CRM initiatives will not become successful. Then another critical factor for failure is not creating a CRM team at the beginning. It is very critical that you form a team at the beginning, and from the beginning itself, it is run with a cross-cultural, cross-function team. Otherwise, if you try to form them in the middle, they will not take the ownership. Then not having representation from business in the CRM team. Sometimes when you look at CRM as an IT project, what you will do is you will put IT people to run CRM, and then they have no business sense. So as a result of that, they are running a CRM project, but they're not getting, they're not having an idea as to how they should do it proper in order to get the business or to make it more customer friendly. Then the next one is not defining measures or poor monitoring. So you have run the program, but you don't know how to measure success. You have not defined the process measures, and then you are not monitoring it effectively. So when you do all these things, your program can go bust. So you have to understand the risk as to what kind of risk that might arise, and basically look at the failure factors, and then ensure that such factors which we are identified will not be there in the project. So there can be a question asking you what are the factors that will lead CRM initiatives to fail. So in that case, you have to remember these two slides, and you should be able to explain. Okay. Next, we are moving to the phase 3, specify needs and select partners. Now, I know this is very, very, very cumbersome and it's very technical. So what I'll do is, if I go on, you will feel bored. So let's take about 5 minutes break. It's 11:25. 11:30 we'll meet again, refreshing ourselves. So go have a cup of tea or have a water, wash your face and come again, right? Right. So let's start the process again. Now we are at the phase 3, right? Phase 3. Here the task is to specify needs and select partners, right? Then under this you need process mapping, right? Identify the processes that need to be made more efficient and effective. Now remember, it's about giving a proper experience to the customer, and the customer, how he gets what he wants is through a process. So process actually gives the customer the experience he wants. Now, for example, if someone wants to apply for a loan, what is the process he has to follow? That process is the experience, right? So especially when it comes to service sector, getting a service, there is always a process to follow. And that process actually is the experience that the customer is going through in obtaining the service. For example, if the customer wants to apply for a credit card, okay, from the beginning, what is the process? How to apply? How he is going to get to know about the product? How is he going to apply? Can he apply online? Can he go to a branch and apply? Is there a physical application? Can he apply through a mobile app? Now, all these things come into play. And then how is he submitting documents? How the application is processed? How many days it will take? Then how the card is prepared? Whether card is being prepared in Sri Lanka or whether the card is being sourced from a foreign country. So if we are sourcing from a foreign country, it will take 3 to 4 days. If it is in-house production, it will take 1 day, right? Then how the card is delivered? Through registered post, through courier, through a branch, then how the card is activated, right? So all these things are part of the process. So when the customer goes through this process or the journey, he eventually will come to a point of getting your service. So he will apply for the card. From that moment, the time that he will get the card in a level that where he can go and use it. And then the next one is about using it, getting statements. All these are processes. So these processes will eventually decide whether the customer is happy or not, whether the experience is better or not. Then it can be compared with the competitors. So when you look at the processes, you need to redefine the processes, not from any perspective, but from the perspective of the customer, whether your customer will be happy or not. The next one is to data review and gap analysis, right? So basically you need to look at the data that you gather, right? So you might gather data from about the customer to target, acquire, retain, develop the relationships. Then that is under strategic CRM, you might need those data. When it comes to operational CRM, you may need customer related data in the everyday operation of the business. Right? What are the customer inquiries? What is the feedback from the customer to our communication? Then what are the transactions, different types of transactions? Those data are the operational CRM for you to take this. Then the analytical CRM. Right? So that is to basically analyze the customer profitability and the profiles. Right? So to identify the customer profitability, tendencies, trends, right? And basically you can see certain, you can take certain predictions such as tendency to lose clients, churn rates, right? So for example, a bank might run a program to identify within next 3 months who are the customers that are more prospective. There's more tendency to cancel their accounts, cancel their cards. So likewise, you can also look at the frequency, the intervals, usage, peak hours, peak times, so on and so forth. So these analysis will help you to strategize the business. So if you look at collaborative CRM, where they try to collaborate the whole activities of the organization, they may need data about support channel partners to make communication more effective, right? So under data review and gap analysis, company should determine what customer data they will need for strategic, operational, analytical, and collaborative CRM needs. At this stage, company should identify information requirements and list down already available data so that you know, okay, these data we already have and we have a system in place. But then they have to also ask, okay, fine, for us to do a better analysis, what are the data we require? So you might come across from your users, there they say, okay, this data is not enough. We need these data also. So in that case, you need to look at how to bridge the gap, right? So basically, you have to see what are the data available and what are the data that we require for us to run a better CRM project, and then how can I bridge the gap, right? So in doing that, it's very important that you know the concept between the difference between need to know and like to know. There are certain information that you need to know, but there are certain information that you like to know about the customer, right? For example, if you say, I will need to know whether the customer has dropped, whether the customer's usage has been dropped by 20%. Whether the customer usage has been dropped or not. But that is a requirement, because if the customer usage has been dropped, you need to initiate a call and ask why. And at the same time, I might have a requirement to see, okay, what are the transactions he has done last month and what are the transactions he has not done this month. Like kind of analysis into in a very deeper level. But those are things that I like to know, so that I can approach him in a better way. But it is not something that I need to know. Right? Even if I don't have those information, I can still address the problem. Right? If I get those not like to know, that is better. That is better. That will really help me. But need to know is critical. Right? So you have to understand what are the need to know information, what are the like to know information, and what information you will facilitate looking at the costs that you have to incur. Based on your analysis and understanding about all those, then you can basically go to initial technology need specification and research solutions, right? So whatever the requirement that you have gathered in the previous stages, then based on your CRM vision, you will come to a level where you say, okay, I need these type of information, I need this kind of a model, and in order to run that, I need this technological support, right? And then define very clearly your technology requirements. So basically, you can look at two key things. First one is hosted or on-premise CRM. Now, this is where you will develop a CRM program inside your organization, tailor-made to your organization, and the data is hosted in your own servers. But if you are not a company with that much of resources and financial capability, you can go for a basically hosted model instead of on-premise model. So on-premise model, you have to invest and have your own servers where the data is stored, but you can go for a hosted model, whereas there you will take a already developed model and you store your data with a third party, right? So if you are not a person who's having that much of financial capability, you can go for a hosted model instead of on-premise CRM. Now, when you decide on your requirement, then you need to write a request for proposal. We call this RFP. Now, RFP is a document which will specify the requirements of the organization, where you will send it out to the vendors stating that we have a requirement and you need to provide these kind of solutions. So if you really look at the RFP serves as the standard document which will set the framework for you and the vendor both, so that the vendor will know what he has to provide and he will quote the price accordingly. You also know what you have requested from the vendor and what you need, so that at the middle of the project, there will be no argument between you and the vendor as to what is requested and what is being offered. So after sending a RFP to vendors, and vendors will start quoting you, vendors will send you proposals with their prices, then you have to select a vendor based on the capability of the vendor to provide the solution and how well he will he has informed that he is going to satisfy your requirements. So you will look at the offer that he has given to you and also the price, and then you will have to select the best partner who will be able to run the program for you. Next is to implement the project. So once you get the quotations and all those things, now you have to implement the project. So now you have to understand this is a kind of a big change to the organization. You are going to implement some new technology and new philosophy where everybody has to change or redo or relearn what they do now to give it a more to make it more customer centric, right? So from not only the technology but the organization culture also need to be changed. So you need to go through change management, right? So when you are running the change management, there are several models that you can follow. So out of which we are going to talk about Kurt Lewin's model and the Kotter's 8-step change model. Right? So this is the Kotter's 8-step change model, right, where he talk about starting the project with by creating a sense of urgency, where you tell your organization and the people that it is a must that they change, right? And then go through all the processes and make sure that you institutionalize the change. So let's take one by one. First one, when you are making a change, is to create urgency. You have to go and tell to the people, look here, there is a requirement for us to change, and if you don't change, we are going to perish. So you have to tell them why this change, what are the benefits, and if you don't change, what will happen, and what is going to happen is going to happen now. You know, 10කින් පස්සේ වෙනවා කියවට මිනිස්සු ගණන් ගන්න නැහැ. ඇයි අපි change වෙන්න ඕනේ? Change උන් නැත්තම් කොහොමද අපි විනාශ වෙන්නේ? ඒව change උන් නැත්තම් අපි දැන් විනාශ වෙනවා. තාම පොඩි කාලෙකින් විනාශ වෙනවා. දැන් කරන්න ඕනේ. නැත්තම් ඉවරයි. Right? So that urgency you need to create. එහෙම නැත්තම් මේ මිනිස්සු මේ change එකට එන්නේ නැහැ. Right? Then you have to form a powerful coalition. Right? You have to convince the people that change is necessary. And you get some people or you build teams to support and lead the change. Right? Here you can talk to some opinion leaders, people who are very active. Right? So you call them, you convince them, you give them incentives, and you tell them, lead the change. Right? So they will go and convince the entire organization to run the change. Then you have to create a vision for change. You have to share your vision. Why are we changing? And when we change, where are we going? After this whole process, අපි ඉන්නේ මොන වගේ තැනකද? ඒකේ තියෙන benefits මොනවද? You have to tell that. Then the next one is communicate the vision. So vision එක පෙන්නලා ඒ vision එක මිනිසුන්ට powerfully communicate කරන්න ඕනේ. And there is no point you communicating and becoming silent. You have to frequently communicate. ඒ මොකක් හරි vision එකක් කරන්න ඕනේ නම් ඔයා ඒක frequently customer එක්ක frequently communicate කරන්න. Frequently communicate කරනවා තමයි මිනිස්සු එකට අනුගත වෙන්නේ. ඊළඟ කාරණේ remove obstacles. So if people are resisting, if there is any process that is resisting, if there is any other constraint that is resisting you to move, you have to handle such resistance and remove obstacles. බාධාවන් අයින් කරන්න, right? එතකොට ඔයාට මේ change එකට support කරන අයව ඔයා encourage කරනවා. ඒතකොට change එකට resist කරන අයව ඔයා handle කරලා ඒගොල්ලන්ව අයින් කරනවා. Right? And basically ඔයා change එකට resist කරන අයගේ reason එක හොයාගන්න. Reason එක හොයාගෙන ඒගොල්ලන්ව support කරන්න. ඒක support කරන්න දාන්න පුළුවන් opinion leaders ලා, consultants මේ වගේ දේවල් දාලා support කරන්න. Right? And අර change එකත් එක්ක යන අයව encourage කරලා reward කරන්න. So they will be given rewards, more bonuses, so that others will feel that they have to get in line. Then you have to create short-term wins. මේ change එකේ පොඩි success ආපුවා මේ success celebrate කරන්න. මේ success celebrate කරලා everybody will see මේ change එක වෙනවා. මේ කතා කරපු දේ වෙනවා. It's happening. කියන එක confidence දෙන්න ඕන. Right? Then build on the change. Change එක හැම වෙලාවෙම change එකේ තත්ත්වය evaluate කරලා ඊළඟ success එක හදන්න ඕන. Continuous improvements. Right? Then finally anchor the change in the corporate culture. ඊට පස්සේ මේ කරපු change එක corporate culture එකේ part and parcel කරන්න. Part of the corporate culture කරන්න. So මේක තමයි Kotter's 8-step change model. Right? So you have to go through these when you are launching your CRM program also. So if you look at Kurt Lewin's change model, it talks the whole thing into puts the whole thing into 3 phases. First, unfreeze. That right now, that is the way that the organization is running. So you go and say to the people that right now what we do is not going to help us. Let's change it. Right? So unfreeze, then change. Then you drive the change. You change things, processes, procedures, technology. You do the change. Then refreeze. Then the new environment you have to refreeze. Right? New values, new beliefs, new norms. Those things you have to now refreeze. In the refreeze, you have to make sure that what is being changed is practiced. So you can do this by using reward, punishment, encouragement, support, consultancy, process, procedures, put in directives, guidelines, right? Rewards is linking rewards and recognition to the changed behavior patterns. So likewise, you have to now make sure that it is the new norm or new culture. Okay? So unfreeze, change, refreeze. So this is simply 3 stages under Kurt Lewin change model. So there are questions for you. So there are questions for you from these 2 models. Even in the past papers, they will tell you, okay, discuss how you will run the CRM or the change using Kurt Lewin model or using the Kotter's 8-step model. So you have to do your research on these 2 models and see how you will write an answer to such a question. So CRM is actually a big change to the whole business philosophy, and to do such a change, you need to drive it effectively. You need to drive it forcefully. So you need to manage the cultural change, you need to lead it, and you need to drive it effectively. And obviously you need to have your leadership being executed, and the senior management or the top management need to support this change to drive this change, right? Because if the top management is not supported, then others of the organization will not come in line with this change drive. Then the phase 5, evaluate performance. Right? So performance measurements can be stated as the process of qualifying the effectiveness and efficiency of the project. Right? So you have to look at the project outcome, how the project has delivered what is required from the project, and as a result of what is being implemented, what are the business outcomes. Right? So CRM initiatives finally should reflect on company's economic results sooner or later, right? So when you invest on CRM, it is a big investment. So then that has to give a return. So sooner or later, it has to eventually reflect on your economic results, right? But remember, evaluating such benefits is not easy, because CRM is a very qualitative thing and its results are coming in the longer run. So therefore, you need to have a holistic analysis rather than looking at cost, revenue, holistic analysis in order to look at how the CRM is contributing. So the model like balance scorecard, where it looks at both financial and non-financial aspects to discuss about the performance of an organization, will be more effective. So after Kaplan, Kim in his research proposed CRM specific balance scorecards. CRM specific balance scorecard, which will actually help you to evaluate the value of or the contribution of CRM. So in this CRM specific balance scorecard, they will look at factors such as customer value perspective, customer satisfaction perspective, customer interaction perspective, and customer knowledge perspective. So they will look at the results of the CRM program by going through these 4 facets, right? So customer value perspective, if you really look at, it is going to measure the financial benefits gained from the customer as a result of your CRM program, right? How much your market share has grown, how much the cross-sell ratio has grown, so on and so forth. Then the second one will look at customer satisfaction perspective. Now you can do the satisfaction surveys and then get the feedback and then look at satisfaction, whether satisfaction has improved or not. Then customer interaction perspective, right? So looking at all the channels in the organization, how well the customer interaction has improved and the customer engagement has improved as a result of your CRM program. Then customer knowledge perspective. Then you will look at whether the quality of customer knowledge and data analysis, and measure after your CRM whether the customer knowledge has increased or not. So if you really look at it into your diagram, increased customer knowledge, that will help to have better campaigns, better sales management. So better campaigns will help you to have increased customer acquisition. So when you have better sales management, where the offers are customized, then that also will support increased customer acquisition. So when you have increased customer acquisition, you have increased number of customers, then increased returns, and then increased customer equity. Beside increased customized offers, right, will lead to increased customer satisfaction, right? And here you will talk about, based on the knowledge that you have on customer, you will improve the systems and the employees. So then you can have better service management, which will eventually contribute to increased customer satisfaction. So when you increase customer satisfaction, it will increase retention, and these will help you to increase customer equity. So these are some of the measures. The question is, how do we measure customer value? So for you to measure customer value, you can go for certain measurements like profit per customer, customer retention ratio, strategic customer migration, customer lifetime value, attrition ratio. Now this is where the customers, attrition means customers leaving, right? Accounts that have been closed, customer loyalty level. Then when it comes to customer satisfaction, you can have customer satisfaction surveys. Assess share of wallet, how much a particular customer is engaged with you, how much business is given to you. Customer retention ratio, complaints and commendations. And these are things that you can measure customer satisfaction. Then customer interaction, how well your organization is interacting or engaged with the customer. Response rate to a particular offer, communication. Then conversion rates, right? How well the customers are getting converted, the leads are getting converted into customers. SLAs, right? Service level standards, agreements, and how well those have been met. Then campaign net present value. When you run a campaign, what is the return? Then you have measurements for customer knowledge. So basically you ask the question, how much I know about the customer, availability of customer profiles and effectiveness of profiles when used. So you have certain profiles about the customer, what you have gathered, and based on that you take decisions. And when you take decisions, how effective those are. Right?
It's 12 o'clock.
If the knowledge is right, then the decisions should be right. So you can check that. Then effectiveness of customer behavior analysis. So whether you do predictive models analysis, and when you do that analysis, how effective it is. For example, your database will tell you, your analytics will tell you, this particular customer is going to cancel this card within the next 3 months. So when you call the customer, if the customer says, yes, mom make a cancel current ETA, then it is very effective. If not, cancel then your analysis is not right. Right? And then data accuracy level, how accurate your data are for you to take decisions. Right? For example, to give a limit increase to the customer, to enhance his credit limit. What is whether the data is available is right. So you may have basically taken his application 5 years back, and there he has mentioned as a clerk. So you are trying to increase his limit by 10,000, whereas now he is a CEO. But you have not updated your system. So what happens is your decisions are not effective. So it's very important that you look at the data accuracy when it comes to customer knowledge. So these are measurements, how you measure, right? So this is customer specific, CRM specific balance scorecard. So you might get a question where the examiner might ask, what are the 4 perspectives in a CRM specific balance scorecard, right? And discuss with measurements under each perspective. So you have to be able to answer. Right. So when you are measuring CRM success, it is difficult for you to do that, but you can approach it by looking at focusing on 3 areas. Measures for customers, measures for stakeholders, and measures for excellence. So measures for customers should be defined from customer perspective. Okay? So from the customers, you can see how effective your CRM programs are. So you can basically set standards such as, or basically check how courteous and prompt in handling customers. Right? When you answer a call, how courteous you are, and whether you will call back when there is a missed call. Right? What is the level of knowledge the staff is having? What is the response time in dealing with a complaint, request made from a customer? Then you can also have some other measures like what is the product penetration, product extension into family, referrals, cross-sell ratio, etc. Then when it comes to stakeholders, so you will basically look at what is the response for your CRM program from stakeholders such as your staff, regulator, financial ombudsman, general public, government, etc. So if you really look at people, if the people are happy and the customers are also happy and having a good relationship between customer and employees, the chances of they staying in the organization is high. But if they are having an organization where they feel bad or they are blamed by the customer every day, they will basically leave the organization because they are getting disappointed. So you can look at staff turnover, the product knowledge of the staff, low levels of complaints to the regulator. Now, these are measures to check about your stakeholders' response. Then, how well your business have excelled as a result of CRM. You can have measures like increased customer profitability, greater product penetration, improvement in conversion ratio, increased staff retention, reduction in errors, etc. Now, all what we discussed up to now is what we should do, and there are certain things that we should not do when we are implementing a CRM program. First one is that you should not never treat CRM as a tactical issue. It's like a very short-term kind of a project. You must never do that. It's a very long-term strategic initiative. You should never treat CRM as an IT issue. It is nothing to do with IT. IT is only a supporter, enabler. It is a business concept. So you must never leave IT team to run a CRM project. It has to be the business team supported by the ID team. Then you not preparing a proper budget. Remember, CRM will make your organization invest on the CRM program, on the change. So you have to have a proper budget in place to make sure that your top management is aware how much they are going to invest. Then when you are running a CRM program, don't try to do it by your way. You must always listen to your customers and understand their needs in running the CRM program. So it has to be customer centric. Then you must never ignore actions of your competitors. When you are running the CRM program, make sure that you give due recognition to competitors and gather information about them so that you can make sure that your CRM program will address those. You must never have a program without having a proper business impact. So you have to have an assumption of what is the business impact when you run the program and how you will handle the risk. You must also have an operational impact assessment, because when you change the processes and the whole operation of the organization, how it will affect the day-to-day business and the cost factors and other regulatory issues. When you are doing this impact assessment, you must never leave it to be done by units, because units will look at the impact on their unit, but not the whole organization. So therefore, it has to be done centrally, looking at the impact of the whole organization. You must also look at how you will basically allow the unit heads or the individual units to implement their part in their units when it comes to the overall implementation, because they know about their units and the practical side better than you. You must never fail or forget to appreciate contributions, right, and the success, right? So you must always ensure during the process you will commend, appreciate the contributions made by people, and also celebrate success. Then failure to provide adequate training is critical failure factor. You have to make sure that you provide adequate training to the staff to adjust to the system, not only in the hard way, basically how you will adapt and use the software, but also the other parts, soft skill training, where you talk about the service improvement, service mindset, and kind of things like that. Then if you are going to run this, you must make sure that you have a change management plan. And if you go to run the project without a change management plan, you are heading towards a disaster. So these are the things, factors that you should not do when you are implementing a CRM program, right? So basically, in a nutshell, what we are trying to tell you is implementing a CRM program is not a project. It's not an IT project. It's a business project where you will try to approach to change the entire organization. You can use some of the models that we discussed and basically see how you will change the entire business model or the business philosophy or the culture, so that all of you in the entire organization will put the customer into the center when they are working, when they are developing their strategies, right? So this is what we should learn, right? So this is an area where you will get at least about 1 or 2 questions. So you have to be very careful. I will be sharing you this presentation now, and whatever they are in the presentation, you can do your self-study, further studies, and get ready for the exam. So we will meet next week, same time. That will be our final class. And there are a few things that we need to cover in that. This is a very kind of a technical session, which obviously I had to do in this way. But next week, it will be more on a little bit of an interactive session, and we will work towards more onto questions. So if you can approach the question papers which have been already uploaded, that is so much the better, so that we can save time next week, and you know how to prepare a draft answer, right? I've already shown you how to prepare a draft. I don't want the answer, but I would like to have the sketch, right? So that we can have a chat as to how we will approach the question paper. So if you can just go through the question paper and have a sketch as to how you will approach the question, so that you can have a chat with me next week, whether you are going in the right direction or not. Because if you go on the wrong direction, like we have realized at the beginning, you might not pass this module, because there are some people who have failed even during last time and previous time, right? So with that note, let me conclude the class with the intention of meeting you next week. Now you have my number, so if you have any concerns during the week, you can call me personally and have a chat with me. And if you have any clarifications to be made, even on the paper, not the paper that you're going to get, but the past papers, questions, you can always call me personally. Okay, so we'll call it a day. Thank you.